Good day, people. Yesterday I did a video that's received almost 100,000 views in 16 hours, probably likely to go over 100,000 views in the first 24 hours. This video here, I need to go over 1 million views, so I need your help sharing this, because today in this video, I'm gonna unequivocally prove in the court of public opinion that our Canadian government has acted as a domestic terrorist under section 83.01 of the Criminal Code. I've prepared an argument as if I'm a lawyer. I'm going to present it, and I need this to get and reach as many Canadians as possible so they can grasp the magnitude of what the Canadian government has been doing probably long before 2020, but certainly starting in 2020 from what I can see. So here we go, buckle up. This is a doozy, guys. So I'm going to be reading from the court case I've prepared, okay? Ladies and gentlemen of the Court of Public Opinion, as counsel arguing on the behalf of countless Canadians who endured unimaginable suffering under the Canadian government's tyrannical COVID-19 regime, I assert unequivocally that these actions can constitute domestic terrorism under Section 83.01 of the Criminal Code of Canada. The evidence is irrefutable. A deliberate ideological campaign to impose unchecked state control executed through intimidation and coercion while intentionally inflicting widespread harm. This was no mere policy misstep. It was a calculated assault on freedoms amplified by the government's willful disregard for dissenting scientific voices. They ignored world-renowned experts behind the Great Barrington Declaration, epidemiologists like Dr. Martin Kulldorff, Dr. Sunetra Gupta, and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, sorry if I pronounce his names wrong, who advocated for focused protection of the vulnerable instead of blanket lockdowns, a strategy vindicated by time and evidence. Canadian doctors, too, were silenced when they sought dialogue to challenge the government's conclusions, such as those from the Canadian COVID Care Alliance and physicians supporting the declaration who faced censorship and professional repercussions for daring to question the narrative. Rather than engage in honest discourse, the government invoked the Emergencies Act in 2022 to crush the Freedom Convoy protests born from these very frustrations, freezing bank accounts, and deploying force against peaceful citizens. Compounding this terror, officials have admitted through inquiries and testimonials that their decisions lacked scientific backing, with measures like mandates and lockdowns implemented without evidence, as revealed in post-pandemic reviews and court findings. I will map these atrocities directly to the statutory elements of terrorist activity, proving the government's culpability beyond a reason of doubt. Element 1, political or ideological purpose. The government's COVID-19 response was a brazen ideological crusade for centralized power masquerading as public health. By ignoring the Great Barrington Declaration's call for targeted intervention signed by thousands of scientists and doctors globally, including Canadian supporters, they deliberately suppressed alternative viewpoints to enforce a collectivist vision of compliance and control. Canadian physicians attempting to convene discussions on the flawed science behind lockdowns and mandates were met with silence or censorship, as documented in studies on the suppression of COVID-19 heterodoxy instead of dialogue. The government escalated to invoking the Emergencies Act, a tool weaponized to squash ideological dissent against their biosecurity state. Officials' admissions of lacking scientific evidence, such as flip-flopping of masks without data, expose this as pure ideology, prioritizing globalist alignments over empirical truth. Provincial echoes like Ontario's unconstitutional gathering bans further entrenched this agenda, reshaping society under the guise of safety while admitting post hoc the decisions were made without robust science. Element 2. Intent to intimidate the public or compel action. Every measure was crafted to terrorize and compel. Lockdowns isolated families under threat of fines. Vaccine mandates coerced injections through job threats, social exclusion, and the Emergencies Act's invocation froze assets of protesters and supporters, sending a chilling message to anyone questioning this regime. By ignoring pleas from the Great Barrington Declaration, By ignoring pleas from the Great Barrington Declaration, experts, and Canadian doctors for evidence-based dialogue, the government instead chose intimidation, labeling dissenters as threats, and deploying state power to silence them. The federal court's 2024 ruling deemed this invocation unlawful, highlighting its overbroad intent to deter protests and compel submission. Admissions of no scientific foundation evident in inquiries where officials conceded evolving or absent evidence only amplified the coercion, forcing Canadians to comply with basic edicts or face economic ruin, as seen in British Columbia's vaccine passports, this segregated society. This was deliberate terror, compelling obedience through fear of state reprisal. Element 3. Intentionally causing specific harms. The harms were intentional and catastrophic, directly risking public health, safety, and economic security. Lockdown spiked mental health crises with a 25% rise in anxiety and depression per Statistics Canada, leading to excessive suicides and overdoses, endangering lives while the government ignored Great Barrington warnings of such collateral damage. Canadian doctors ignored calls for discussion could have averted delayed treatments and preventable deaths from untreated illnesses like cancer. Invoking the Emergencies Act intensified economic disruption, freezing accounts, and crippling livelihoods as the federal court confirmed charter violations. So, guys, if you're not aware, in 2024, the federal court deemed that the Canadian government acted out of line when they invoked the Emergencies Act. They are challenging that in 2026 or 2025. There's later, they're going to try to challenge that, but I suspect they're going to come across the same outcome. Officials' admissions of lacking science through reports showing no evidence for masks, lockdowns, or mandates prove intent, as they proceeded despite knowing the risks of the harms to society, causing serious interference with essential services and public safety. Provincial actions like Alberta's measures, later criticized for lacking consensus, intentionally exasperated isolation and despair. At this point, I'd also like to add that since the vaccine rollout, the deaths increased, and they have been on an increasing pattern for 4 years. So people are dying and they're being harmed from these vaccines. You don't have to look any further than to National Citizens Inquiry. They travel across this country and they took interviews from vaccine injured. They took testimonials from people that have family members that died shortly after the vaccines. We have doctors like Dr. Peter McCullough saying that 74% of the people post-vaccination deaths were related to the vaccine. We have lots of evidence that the vaccines have caused way more harm than they have done good. So, and they are still have these vaccines on the market, which tells you that this is intent. It is by no means an accident or incompetence. So, the totality, a pattern of domestic terrorism. This was state terrorism, ignoring experts from the Great Barrington Declaration and Canadian doctors, refusing dialogue, invoking the Emergency Act to suppress truth seekers, and admitting no science at all to enforce ideological dominance while inflicting intentional harm. Courts and inquiries affirm this overreach, demanding accountability under Section 83.01 of the Criminal Code of Canada. Justice requires recognizing these acts as terrorism, prosecuting the perpetrators, and healing our nation. I rest my case. Now, guys, I have been taking this stance on Section 83.01 of the Criminal Code immediately. Within a very short period of time, when they started ignoring doctors, around the convoy time is when I realized that, you know, if they're not going to listen to doctors, the censorship that they were doing. I was posting videos daily of doctors all over the world. In fact, I still have the main one on the homepage of awakecanada.org if you want to review that. Review the information on the home. I've been documenting the crimes of this Canadian government since 2020, and the homepage really sums it up in one short little thing. But basically, there's a 30-minute video of doctors from all over the world saying there was no pandemic, no evidence of a pandemic, and that these vaccines were going to be untested, unproven, and dangerous. And sure enough, history has proven everything that I said was right. So guys, I need your help. I need you to get this video to as many people as possible. Now, what's going to happen is a whole bunch of trolls are going to come. These are agents of the government. This is more evidence of domestic terrorism. They have employed a bunch of people to stay behind the scenes and agitate and dissent and cause problems. And when you look at these people that are laughing, when they're going to put their little laugh emojis, you click through to them, you're going to see that most of these profiles are fake. So guys, help spread this video. Let's get the Canadian Court of Public Opinion to understand that there is no question about it. The Canadian government acted as domestic terrorists under Section 83.01 of the Criminal Code. Thank you.